calendar, they assume it may actually be on Google rather than anything else, which is obviously not the case. But I've just, I'm thankfully I'm on WhatsApp with everybody, so we can kind of sort that out on the fly, so to speak. Anyway, we are live, folks. We are live with Brainfood live on air, bringing it to you every Friday. We're doing this every week, I think, Adam. I don't think we've missed one. Maybe missed one. I forget what the reason was. It was some kind of adherence to some sort of commitment to do only 40 episodes a year, but we're going to hit about 50 odd for sure. So welcome everybody to episode 72. We are trucking on. Quick sound check as usual. We are broadcasting live on Crowdcast, so I can see people are hearing and me on Crowdcast. Okay, we are multi-streaming though on LinkedIn Live, Facebook, and Periscope. So if you're on one of those three channels, can you please just comment quickly below and let me know whether you can hear me okay? Just say something to the effect of, yes, Hung, I can hear you. Please continue with the show. Time is pressing. It's Friday afternoon. Don't want to go through this rigmarole every week. Oh dear, yeah. So can you hear me? Just say hello. That's going to be something I need to see. Otherwise, I'm going to have to redo the damn thing all over again. Okay, we're getting a few likes and yeses in there. There tends to be a delay. I didn't realize this, but on Crowdcast, we're probably about 5-10 seconds ahead of everyone else. Which is kind of a bit of weirdness, I guess. I don't know what insane person might actually watch it on multiple channels. There's probably some weirdo out there that does that. Anyway, it's good to know that we're all live. We're all good with AV. Quick word to our sponsors, as usual. Every episode of Brainfood Live this year has been sponsored. Given the popularity of this show, we are delighted to say this week is sponsored by our buddies at Smart Recruiters. Smart Recruiters, they are an incredible company, also an incredible, culture where we love these guys. Basically, they do so much in terms of adding additional value aside from just producing some excellent software. Got a great community, got great initiatives. We love Jerome, great CEO also. Hope to bring him on to the show again before the end of the year also to talk about how you can negotiate various things with C-level as well. So excited to see that. Check them out if you're looking for an ATS. Link is shared in the Crowdcast. Okay, we've got an exciting show for us today. We're going to be talking how to look for work as a recruiter, particularly as a senior recruiter, head of TA, involuntarily recruiters job searching, perhaps for the first time in a long while. So we've got some amazing guests lined up, guests that are either on the market, been on the market, recruiting for people at that level. They're going to help give us some sort of frontline perspective as to what the job market looks like for recruiters here. I'm joined as ever by Adam Gordon. Adam, how are you doing, sir? Sorry for the mega long intro. I hope you're okay, man.
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely great. Good to be back. I wasn't here last week. I was on holiday in St Andrews, where you went to university.
That's right. Yeah, how was that?
Yeah, great. A bit of rain, a bit of sun, a bit of ice cream, and a bit of running on the beach, reenacting Chariots of Fire. So yeah,
was the sea as cold as I remember it? So it looks kind of nice until you dip your big toe in there, and then it's like, oh.
Well, I mean, it was a little bit. Obviously, we've had a bit of global warming since then, so it was almost palatable. Yeah, it was pretty cold. Yeah. It was
did you go in? Did you and the kids go in, or?
Yeah. They went right in. They were like swimming. I went into about the top of my thighs.
Yeah, that'll do.
I couldn't go in any further than that.
Yeah, I know where the top of the thighs end, Adam. I know what you're talking about exactly.
Yeah, you can't go further than that.
Yeah, exactly right. Okay, great. Well, listen, fantastic to have you back on the show, man. And welcome back on from your holiday. Hope you had a good time. And as ever, I don't know whether you had the chance to read Brainfood actually because you're on holiday. So did you read it or not? And if you did, was there anything you want to talk about?
I never miss Brainfood. So holiday or not, it's one of the things I read every single week. So yes, I did. The first thing that I want to talk about is The one I don't get my suggestions featured, but I don't actually give that many suggestions because I like reviewing other people's. But I did give one, and you featured it. It was about it was a BBC sort of animated. I don't know how to describe it, but it was a story, effectively, about how Layla, a fictional office worker, what's going to happen with Layla in 5 years' time, how she's going to be working. And it really is it's actually fun to read. It's a short story, but it explains about like what the one day a week she does go into the office, what happens in that day, how she basically gets to a meeting room without having touched anything, and what that kind of day looks like. Now, I don't think it's realistic, the way that it explains this story, because it suggests that she'll be going in one day a week for those meetings where it really is more valuable. You will get more done when you're face to face. And I'm thinking the only way that can happen is if the other people that need to be in those meetings that she's going in for are also going into the office on that same day. Now, there's no way in a large company, a large organization, like the BBC, for example, there's absolutely no way that they would be able to coordinate it so that one day is the day when I will be meeting that group of people and that group of people and that group of people, and they will only be meeting people in the office on that one day as well. So it just can't work like that, I don't think. But there was a lot of fascinating things around technology and just ways of living, which will be different. So it shows you what her, how she's changed her house to become almost an office house.
Yep.
Some of the aspects to that.
Haven't we all?
Yeah, we have. I've actually, I made a really, really bad mistake this recently, and that's I bought something from, sorry to anybody that works for Wish.com, but I bought something on Wish. I have no idea why I bought it, like 2 months ago. And it did arrive, but it arrived like yesterday, I think it was. It's a stand-up thing you put on top of your table so you can stand while you're doing meetings. And so yeah, I mean we have all made changes, but this was really showing you this is what life as normal as a work from home person is going to be, and certainly thought-provoking.
Yep, I've shared the link in the chat stream there, folks. Do check it out. By the way, the people who I've spoken to that have quote unquote gone back to work do report very similar type of experiences. So in other words, they've gone back and it's kind of retaining a social isolation view. Everyone is still like in paneled off, they're not really you're in the same building, possibly in the same room, but you're off on the other side of the room in order to recreate that social distance. And I just think that entire thing is kind of just very sad. It's almost like you're trying to get back to what it was, and it's just a halfway house to it. And you just think, what is the point? There's some very interesting stories out of East Asia that I think they are about 4 or 5 months ahead in terms of the cycle that they're in. And you read some of those stories and you think, goodness me, that entire exercise of going back to work to an office seems like really just a lot of additional extra steps that have got to suck out all of the potential productivity you think you're going to get by being on site. And by the way, when you are having those super important meetings, how unproductive are they going to be? You say, hey, listen, we've only got this 1 day a week. Let's make sure we innovate this today. No innovation is going to happen there.
I know, but on the other side though, people are definitely. I can feel a shift in people's emotions just over the last sort of month or so, as they've been working from home a bit longer, and it's starting to set in that this is what's likely to happen for quite a long time now. And I mean, even I on Monday, my first day back after a week's holiday, I had about 9 hours of working that day. I had 7.5 full hours, not an exaggeration, on Zoom meetings. And so what I realized was at the end of that day, I sent somebody a message that was having a meeting with me the following day. It was meant to be on Zoom on Tuesday. And I said, look, can we just do this as a call? Because I'm going to go out and I'm going to walk around my neighborhood while we're doing this. We don't need to see each other. We know what each other looks like. And that person went, yeah, absolutely fine. And so I'm going to be trying to do that for every third meeting. I'm going to be doing it as, right, get out, walk around the neighborhood.
people you have regular conversations with, a call is great. Audio only I think is fine. Where it's difficult, I think, where that relationship isn't in place, or if it's a totally new meeting, I think sometimes the additional sort of information you get face to face has a huge benefit. Yeah. But you're right. Sitting there constantly zooming out is going to be too much. And changing it up with a walk and talk is fantastic. So I'm totally up for that. All right, moving on quickly. What else, Adam? Anything else interesting you read sort of last week?
Yeah, there's two more things. One was actually all of it. The whole thing was really interesting. But the two things specifically that I wanted to focus on were, as you know, I'm very interested in content and content in the recruitment context. And how it can get people to do things and writing and that type of stuff. The article, which was about the inverted pyramid style for content writing, whereby you really front load the most important things that you need people to know about. It's a technique that's taken straight from journalist school, and that's how they do things. And actually, if you go and look at newspaper articles, you'll see that the headline says a lot of what you need to know about the article, and then the first couple of paragraphs pretty much gives you everything you need, and then it's after that. If you want to go deeper, then that's what should be there. And certainly some of my customers, they follow that when it comes to the way of going about structuring emails and structuring communication campaigns and things like that.
Yep.
Pyramid shape, front-loaded information up at the top that helps people decide to get whether they want to go to the next stage or not.
Yep, inverted pyramid, fantastic post. Just shared it in the chat stream. Bottom line up front, folks. If you're writing anything online, the bottom line goes up front. I've started just writing a single sentence in bold as the first thing people see. Not even hi, Adam. It's like, this is what this email is about, because I want to try and save you time. I don't want to have you chew through, or how you doing, that kind of palaver, because I'm sure you'd want to answer that. It's like, I'm not even going to ask that question. I don't mean to be impolite, but here is what this email is about. And then at the end, I even put a background color in green saying, this is what I need you to do, and give an option yes, no on something. So that basically promotes quick response rather than having to, work out what it is this person's wanting and then reply back with a convoluted email. We need to get better at that writing. So that post is definitely worth a look. Please do have a look and share it. Okay, one more, Adam.
Yeah, okay. So Andy Spence writes and I read. This guy's great. He decodes a lot of things about what work is going to become in the future. And he's written an article which was termed something like Unleashing the Future Workforce, or the Decentralized Workforce. And it's all about different kind of job titles or job kind of categories that we hadn't really considered before. Some people might be doing. In fact, you are several of them. I think so. You're definitely a slashy,
right?
Because you do this/this/this.
Aren't we all?
Yeah, more and more so. Absolutely. You're also a solopreneur. You're also a data laborer. So there's quite a few. You're actually quite a few of these things.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, absolutely, great article too. And I'll tell you what, if you're thinking about what should I encourage my kids to do in the future, go and follow Andy Spence and read his stuff and read this particular article, because it'll help you to understand actually what are more people going to be doing in the world in 10 years' time.
Yep, not only an article, but Andy Spence has used that article to launch a newsletter on the future of work, and I highly recommend people check it out. Andy obviously has been a Brainfooder for a long time, great supporter of this newsletter also. But he also knows a hell of a lot about things like blockchain and how the impact of work is going to look like. I'm generally aligned with most of the things that he's talking about. So we need to get Andy on the show at some point, actually. I'm now that we're talking about him, I'm actually reminded that that's not happened yet. So Andy, my apologies. We're going to get you on. Okay. That's about it. Before we bring on our guests, let's have a talk about this concept of job search as a recruiter. We know that this is a very interesting time, interesting moment. I'm sure you're not alone in finding friends that have lost their jobs, that are on the market involuntarily in many cases for the first time in a long time. What do you think are the challenges for, in particular, a senior level recruiter? Someone who is literally this person 6 months ago would not have a CV. They'd be headhunted out from one company to the next, and it'd just be, let's choose which offer I want to take. Now, global recession, companies laying off, contracting. I think I read a report today to say, someone did a survey on CEOs, and something like 80% said, we're going to have to contract further over the next 12 months or so, which has got to mean less recruiters. So what are your thoughts on that? What should a head of TA, senior recruiter executive be doing now if they find themselves on the job market?
I mean, I joined in preparation for this Brainfood Live. I joined a meetup last night, which was 9:00 here in the UK. That's how committed I am to preparing. There's a Facebook group called Talent Collective, and it's for TA people who are interested in looking for new job opportunities. Yep. And there is a guy whose name I can't remember, but he relentlessly, every single day, this came up in my feed, job. This came up in my feed, job. A lot of it's sort of sourcing managers and TA managers and jobs like that. So Talent Collective is something that is worthwhile going and taking a look at.
Just shared it in the chat room there, folks.
Yeah, Lee, I think you posted a comment on the actual meetup last night, but I didn't see you in the on the screen. Anyway, I think one really vital thing is, as a TA professional, the amount of additional scrutiny that you'll put into your job search experience, and the amount of disappointment that you're going to have with how businesses are going about doing it is really problematic, because you could get more downhearted than other individuals because you really understand how recruitment works. And if you're seeing bad experience after bad experience, you might just be more deflated than other people. So that's one aspect to it.
Right. So basically, it's almost like the cook going to a restaurant and being hypercritical of it because he could do it better or she could do it better in the kitchen. Actually, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? It's probably a bad thing because it gets your morale further down, doesn't it? You say you just got to eat the food, get on with it.
It could well do. On the upside, the opportunity to take a look at, hold on a second, this is a terrible, terrible experience. And then I think, and this is what they were talking about in this group, quite honestly, you could just bypass the process, go straight to the CHRO and just explain that your name's in the frame, or you've submitted your application, but quite honestly, you're going to go directly to that person and say, here's what I can do for your business. And this is not a great experience, although I really love your company for this reason, this reason, and this reason. I want to come and work with you, and I want to make it better. And here's the different things that I can do. It could give you real leads. And these people are, honestly, they've got drip campaigns. They see a lead, they see a job they're interested in. These people in this group have got drip campaigns
as an applicant
for nurturing the head of TA, for nurturing the CHRO, for nurturing other people in the business.
Right, super interesting idea. I want to ask a question to the crowd here. Does anybody actually apply their own recruitment sort of techniques to the job search? If you're on the job search, you have been recently, have you just been a standard job seeker, or have you actually applied the stuff you know in recruiting to your job search? This could be leads generation in terms of sourcing. This could be nurturing with the drip campaign, all that type of stuff. I want to hear about it. Please make a comment below. That's super interesting. I will say the drip campaign is a very good idea. I think feeding back on how bad their recruitment process is a terrible idea. And the reason why I think everyone's going to do that. And you're just going to come across as like a complaining candidate. And I'm thinking, if I'm there, I probably know it's a crap experience. As a recruiter, you know if you're not giving feedback on every applicant, it's a bad experience. You know it is. We're just trucking with it because we have no choice. Last thing I need is a smart aleck coming in and like telling me how to run my kitchen, so to speak. So get out of it. So I'm not sure that's a good idea. Anyway, if I'm wrong, please hammer me in the comments. Okay.
Listen, the other thing that they were talking about was actually, if look out for companies where there appears to be I mean, this is going to be a bit controversial. Look out for companies where there's clearly a lot of agency usage, because there's a lot of jobs I mean, with a lot of recruitment agency jobs, you can see you can work out by just cutting bits out the advert and putting it into Google, and you know who the job's with. Look for companies where there's a lot of recruitment agency usage, and then you've got a couple of ways of going and pitching yourself in for a job where no job necessarily exists.
Yeah, very, very smart.
Creating jobs.
This group is fantastic. It's not because you definitely didn't come up with these ideas, Adam. So presumably you were just harvesting from this group. I just shared the group in the link there. It's only got 180 members. I'm surprised it only has 180 members. Everyone should go in that group. It's really good because there's already 3 great ideas there as to how recruiters can actually use their techniques and their mindset to identify jobs. And you're quite right. A company that is recruiting TA people via a recruitment agency, you've got to know that, hey, listen, there's a way in which I can fix this problem. I'm going to go around the corner on this one. Okay, so I'm going to invite these guests on, man, because they're essentially been waiting for a while. And as much as I'd love to hear you continue to prattle on, Adam, I'm going to invite Chad on.
I said this very briefly, but just what... It's really a really great idea to, even if there's no job, even if there appears to be no job in existence.
Yeah.
You see companies you like the look of. If they don't have a head of TA, go and pitch yourself to their CEO and tell them what you can do for their business, even if there's no job necessarily even if they're not advertising.
Okay, so I've just invited Chad Horn to join us, and Lindsay and Lisa Scales even. Lisa, how are you doing?
I'm great, thank you. Can you hear
me
all right?
I can hear you fine. Great to see you.
Cool.
And Lisa, for the people who don't know you, can you quickly introduce yourself and who you are, what do you do?
Yeah, I'm Lisa Scales, as we've just said about 3 times. And I am the head of TA at Nestle for the UK and Ireland market.
Cool. Great to have you on the show, Lisa. And oh, by the way, Adam, I cannot identify Lindsay here, so I wonder whether she's in the right place. Lindsay, if you're watching this on Crowdcast, can you please comment below and say that you're okay here? If not, wherever you are, I hope you can join us later. Chad, by the way, I've just invited you on screen, so hopefully you'll be able to see that and come on board. But Lisa, whilst we've got you here, the reason why I want to speak to you, not only are you great at talking about any recruiting topic, but in particular, this topic is super interesting because you recently moved jobs into Nestle, didn't you?
I did, yeah, 6 weeks ago.
So congratulations.
So how long?
Nice.
6 weeks ago. Okay, so right in the middle of the pandemic. I mean, can you just take us through this? I mean, when did it start? Did it start before COVID-19? How did you handle that sort of through the process?
Yeah, so I was actually, it's been quite some time since I actually accepted the job, which was before COVID. So I only left on the 30th of June, but I was on 6 months notice, which I worked.
Right.
So it was all pre-COVID, but as you can imagine, as soon as we went into lockdown on the 23rd of March, I was in my notice period, and it was quite a strange time because I worked for Severn Trent, which is a water company, critical provider in national infrastructure, and we were all deemed to be key workers. So COVID hit the whole country, obviously the whole world, and it was weird because I was obviously in my notice period, enforced to be at home, but we had a huge amount of work to do with our population, employee population. So it's been a strange time knowing that I was going, being at home. We're all working. I mean, the HR team at Severn Trent did an amazing job and still are in terms of supporting the workforce. And then leaving on the 30th of June and starting with Nestle, which was slightly strange, starting a new job in the middle of this worldwide sort of catastrophe. So quite weird.
What's strange about it? I mean, now that you've had a chance to breathe a little bit, I guess. I mean, looking back, I mean, how was that onboarding different? And what's your feelings on it?
Yeah, so the team at Nestle have been brilliant, and actually, because of my long notice period, my boss and the team have been brilliant in terms of onboarding me, getting to know me before I started. So I didn't feel like I was starting cold, and felt like I'd built enough relations with people that I didn't feel like a complete outsider. Although, first day there's a lot of trepidation. I'm sat there, I'd had my laptop delivered to home, and, the onboarding that they, organised for me was brilliant. I had a great induction, met a load of people, but, even yesterday I was having a conversation with somebody that I hadn't met previously, and it's weird. He apologized to me immediately because he said, I've got builders at home, I'm having a new kitchen fitted, so this call might be a bit disrupted. And I said to him, it's so interesting, isn't it? You in a meeting room, you get to know somebody through the nuances of, body language and the tone of the room and the tone of the conversation. And all of a sudden, I know more about this guy's life than, I would ever know in a meeting him for the first time. So it's weird. You end up knowing a layer about people, but you don't really know them. So it is strange. And, when you're dealing with senior people, we all know that, we're in a relationship business. And so it's key for me to build some really good relationships. But everybody's in the same boat. So I'm not sitting here going, oh, woe is me. I just have to get on with it, dig deep.
It's a different way to find out about people as well, isn't it? Like, we find different things. It's very hard to be super professional these days. It's impossible even, because there's life happening. There's stuff going on in your place that you live, and that's totally normal. I mean, someone's going to ring the bell in a minute. I'll say, sorry guys, I have to pick up this Amazon thing, and it's going to happen.
My house bell rings and my dogs bark. And I haven't managed to get that quick enough button pressed to put them on mute. So, invariably my dogs bark when somebody comes to the door. So, yeah.
And you know what? Dogs are great. They're very popular on any Zoom call. Anyway, we seem to have Chad here. Chad, how are you doing? You're on mute, by the way, I think. You on mute? No, you isn't. Chad, can you hear us? No, you're fine. You're fine.
I can hear you.
Cool. Chad.
How you doing?
I'm well. For the people who don't know you, can you just introduce yourself and what it is that you do?
So I'm Chad Horn, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for having me, guys. I'm previously head of global resourcing at Audley Travel. And obviously with the fact that the travel industry is going through a bit of a thing at the moment, I'm now not at Audley Travel. So I'm actually a job seeker. And prior to that, I was head of resourcing at 3, the mobile company.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, welcome onto the show. I mean, I guess with the travel business, you're right in the line of fire. That's obviously going to crunch down. When all of this happened and you found yourself looking for opportunities, Chad, what was going through your mind at the time, and what kind of strategy did you deploy? I mean, was it a case that you had to just dive straight in, or did you realize that actually this is going to be a different way of looking for work, perhaps, than I'd been used to?
Yeah, well, luckily I haven't ever been a candidate in the market previously. Luckily, the jobs have sort of fallen on my lap or been tapped up, which is quite nice. And it's quite an incestuous world, isn't it? The world of TA. So it's quite a weird sensation, actually. But I saw it coming. I was put on furlough in April. And, obviously the situation got worse with travel and the writing was pretty much on the wall. So I decided to take voluntary redundancy and get ahead of the game and back myself to try and get another role. So since the 1st of July, I've been an active job seeker. And it's been pretty crap, actually, if I'm brutally honest. And if it wasn't for my network, it'd be really easy to get down and depressed about it all because, the experience generally has been really poor. And I've learned so much, actually, about not just about myself, but about being a candidate in the market, which will hold me in massively good stead for when I do get my next gig, because it's so easy to get it right, but it's so easy to get it wrong. And a lot of companies are getting it fundamentally, drastically wrong.
What has caused you to say that, Chad? Like, what is the bad experience you're talking about?
Just generally applying for roles online. I think it's been pretty horrendous. The experience has been a little bit shoddy, if I'm honest, and the lack of feedback, the fact you put a lot of effort into tailoring your CV, tailoring the application, it can take a long time, and you just get no feedback back at all. I think it's unacceptable in this market. And, I'm going for like sort of senior TA leadership positions, and not saying that should be any more worthy of any other roles, but surely you'd think that you'd try to, keep, the talent acquisition community, in the loop, but absolutely not. Probably about 80% of roles I've applied for, I haven't heard anything back from. And the 20% I have heard back from, it's either being, yes, we'll have a conversation with you, or the computer says no, even though your remit, your experience, and you tick all the right boxes in your view. So it's been really tough from that perspective. So I don't know, I think technology, people can hide behind it, but I think technology should be able to enhance the communication, it should enhance the experience, and should make it a better life for everybody. And there's so many people going through this at the moment. It should be better, and it's not.
Well, I can sense your frustration there, Chad, and thank you for coming on the show and sharing it with us. It's important that we, have that perspective on this, because as you say, we're not often in this situation as an involuntary job seeker. Particularly 7 months ago, people of your experience, you'd be headhunters out, you'd be choosing jobs. It wouldn't be a case that you'd ever put together a CV. But now you've got individuals that, find themselves on the job search and the heat of it, and, experiencing at firsthand some of the complaints, I guess, we've been hearing about for a little while. Like we've heard about the CV black hole, now you're experiencing it directly. Very persistent problem that we can't seem to ever get right. I
think what it has taught me is that the leverage of your network is gonna get you your next gig. I think opportunities like this platform, LinkedIn, all your network groups, you just have to be really active, really engaged. I mean, it's soul destroying just sitting on LinkedIn all day. I mean, it does your head in. I mean, you've got 4 young kids like I have. I can't do that. I've got to sort of interact with my family as well. So you have to carve out short space of time to really try to get involved and do the right thing. But everyone absolutely in your network has been amazing, and I think the TA community have really pulled together. And you just have to go on LinkedIn on a daily basis, and people chucking roles out there, they're compiling lists. It's been really heartwarming to say actually how willing people are to help each other, even though they're all in the same boat. And I think that there's a lot of good that will come out of this as a result of that, in terms of the network, the sharing of best practice. And I think if there's one good thing that comes out of that, it will be that the talent acquisition community will become a lot closer together and be willing to share best practice and insight. Yeah, fantastic. Final thing before I open it out to others here. It sounds to me like you've lost a little bit of faith in the advert apply type of way of finding work. I mean, can you give us some numbers around that, Chad? I mean, have you sent one and it was a bad experience that you shied off, or was it a case you just sent loads of them and it's like, oh my goodness, this seems like just a waste of time? I think it's, you need to have a strategy for sure. You can't just spray and pray, which was back in the old agency days, and throw enough CVs and hopefully one will stick. But certainly at our level, you need a lot more targeted than that. So I had a plan. I knew that I was going to take the VR, come sort of late May, beginning of June. So I started to reach out to all my own network, let them know that this was probably going to be the case. Rewrote my CV, which I hadn't had to do for ages, which is a hard job in itself. Even though you see hundreds of CVs every day, to write your own one is a little more challenging. And then you just have to start thinking about, what am I going to do day in, day out? What am I going to achieve? Have a to-do list. I create a spreadsheet so I know exactly what roles I've applied for, what stage I'm in. I know exactly what agencies or HR consultancies I've spoken to, and so on. So you can just really keep track of what you're doing and when you're doing it, because again, it could just be a hot pox of information. You just get lost in terms of everything, which is really disconcerting, really. So you really need to have a focus, and each week, promise yourself to post a couple of posts on LinkedIn, to apply for one job, to jump on at least 1 or 2 webinars. I've done loads of upskilling my knowledge on tech out there, TA6. So I spoke to Adam a couple of weeks ago, because even though I'm not an employee now, I want to learn about this stuff. So when I go into my next job, I've got that knowledge. So I'm going into another place. I'm using the time effectively, And I think a lot of people are doing that. But again, I because of 4 kids at home, I can't spend too much time doing that. I can't do a project management course or anything like that because I just don't have the time.
Yeah, and just the final thing before I shut up, essentially a lot of the learning activity you do ends up having networking outcomes, doesn't it? Like if you're involved in an online webinar, if you join, let's say, an online conference or something that has some interactivity, that you learn stuff, but you'll end up connecting with individuals in the community that may be able to surface some opportunities for you as well. So that sort of behavior seems to me like it kind of makes sense as well. I do see Lindsay here, by the way. I'm going to try and bring her on here. So let's make it a 5-stream, shall we?
Chad, can I ask, how many jobs do you think at the kind of level that you're looking at, how many of those jobs do you think are advertised? Do you think in this current environment they all are, or do you think they're more so getting through networking?
I think most of them have been advertised actually, but what I'm finding now is they get taken down really quickly because of the sheer volume of applications. And because I'm on quite a lot of networks and whatever, if I don't personally see one advertised, I'll learn about it through another source. And you just jump on LinkedIn or the ATS or whatever sort of platform is that you need to apply. So I think most of them, but I reckon probably head of level or similar. There's probably about 15 to 20 roles since June at that level, but there's probably hundreds of applicants that are looking for those type of roles. So not all of them will be suitable for me or others, obviously, because there's sector nuances and experience nuances. But there's probably been about 20 odd that I think I've seen at that level.
So the thing is, I've seen a lot more job moves in the last couple of months than that 20 though. So I've seen a lot of people moving jobs. I wonder if that scenario more like Lisa though, where people actually were offered jobs kind of back in January and they've had 6 months notice, that type of thing. Maybe that's partly that. But it's certainly interesting to. I mean, if I was hiring for a head of talent acquisition, I don't think I would bother advertising it. I mean, I think I would go and try and identify who are the people that I absolutely want and build my, list of 10. These are the 10 people that I know would be brilliant for this job, and that's the way I would go about doing it.
Which is what I would have tasked my TA team to do. I mean, rather than go through 300 applications, why don't you spend a week going on LinkedIn, directly sourcing these people who are available? There's amazing talent available now. It wouldn't take you too long to build an amazing long list of people that fit your criteria. And I think it's a really lazy way of just hoping for the best when you're going to get loads of applications when you could tailor your search accordingly from a direct sourcing perspective.
Aren't we going back to the kind of early noughties where it's post and pray as well? And sometimes it's due to lack of skills. So even in this day and age, we're always having to educate recruiters around the world on how to actively seek talent, proactively seek talent. And so I'm sure anyone who's on here who's ever been a team member of mine or is a team member of mine will always hear me, don't post and pray. Stop it. We don't have time for that. You don't have time for that. And it's so important that we treat candidates with respect, that we treat people with respect.
I've got a theory as to why this all happens, which will explain everything. But before I do that, welcome Lindsay Shankler, and sorry that we couldn't get you on earlier. Lindsay, for the people who don't know you, can you please introduce yourself, like who you are, what do you do?
So I have worked in-house TA for nearly 18 to 20 years of my career, currently with Corn Ferry. Recently, I've done a lot more around recruitment, talent acquisition, transformation, continuous improvement, HRIS, you name it, it's been covered. So I'm really passionate about everything from diversity, inclusion, right through to employer branding, but I have a particular passion for candidate experience. I've been a candidate in the past and I've been redundant, I've been made redundant, and someone mentioned earlier it's Shakespeare-esque. It kind of is, and I was talking to Chad earlier that I remember being made redundant in my 20s and I suddenly had a newfound respect for the talent coming through to either me directly or my team members. because I remember I was a single girl, I had 2 cats, I had a mortgage, right? I had no other responsibilities, but I was terrified. And I was chasing recruiters. I was that person, you know, that person that we all swat away with a fly. And suddenly I learned so much during that period that take a step back. And if you've got someone that you want to swat away and they actually are good talent, stop and look behind the noise and look at the vulnerability. Look at, you know, they're probably a little bit worried, you know, they're fearful of their future. And as well, especially when you're a talent acquisition leader, the last thing you want to be doing is being an active candidate. You know, it's like your worst, my worst nightmare. I just don't want to go down that route, and the recruiter, the hunter, becomes the hunted. And so I learned a lot, and I have learned a lot throughout my career, which is why I think it's so important that we always think about the candidate. I was talking on LinkedIn earlier a couple of days ago about, you know, there's technology out there, and Chad and I were putting the world to rights earlier about there's budgets to suit everyone, but that shouldn't be the only thing that we rely on. We should be having go-to-market strategies, and our teams should be sitting down and thinking, who's top talent out there, and not just sitting compiling a list on LinkedIn, you know, picking up the phone. Oh, right, Chad, who's the top 3 people you know? Adam, who do you know? And so on and so forth. And that would be a much smarter way to work. And I've had people over the years actually write to me, and they're still texting me 15 years later saying, thank you for turning me down. You know, thank you for not giving me a job and treating me with respect. And I think Chad and I were talking earlier that this is really a time where people are not going to forget. So COVID, emotions are running high. And I think that we all have had a bad experience, some way, shape or form in the recruitment world. But this is a real defining time and moment for TA and HR professionals to really get their house in order, get it right, treat people with, I keep saying it, treat it with respect, and just be human, right? So use the technology, but don't forget there's a human at the other end of that.
Can I just make a point about the, you know, if you were looking for a head of TA, that you would go and look at, you know, go out to the market, look for the top talent. My only worry about doing that is who you're missing, who haven't maybe been actively promoting themselves online and maybe are more invisible. So I absolutely get your point. Don't try and get 300 applications. Certainly do not ignore them. But there is something about, actually, there's some hidden gems out there, and there is a bit of a fairness about advertising a role. And I appreciate we always say, post and pray and all that. And yes, a job's posted and there is I hope I get some great candidates. But there similarly is, if you're looking for diverse talent, I think it's just dangerous to think just proactively go into the market, because generally there'll be a bit of confirmation bias in terms of you'll recruit people like yourself. And I just feel that actually there is, you know, there's a fair playing field if a job is advertised. And Chad, to your point, I think it's disgraceful in this day and age, given the fact that, you know, my recruiters, for example, are running on a third less vacancies at the moment. So there's no excuse for a degradation of candidate experience. There's plenty of time at the moment for recruiters to put their arms around candidates and look after them, even more so now.
Is that true, folks? For the crowd listening right now, do you have more capacity to do candidate engagement? Yes or no? Just let me know on this, because I'm not so sure that's the case. I'm not a recruiter. I haven't been a recruiter for a long time, and I'm not in the situation where basically I'm in a company that maybe is doing less recruitment than is operationally necessary, but for some reason is keeping me hanging around. I just wonder what the pressures are on me suddenly to think I need to escalate my value to my business in a visible way so that I don't get the chop. And maybe being nice to every candidate or spending an extra 5 minutes on every single applicant coming through doesn't visibly do that. And I may be thinking selfishly, but you know what? This is pandemic. This is global recession. Could be 10-year depression. I need to look after myself. So I wonder whether the incentives aren't aligned in some way. We need to say to recruiters, everyone's got some sort of candidate rating score, let's say. And that needs to be part of your comp and part of your job security.
And don't get me wrong, recruiters at the moment are filling their time with doing all the lovely stuff that we don't generally get time to do in our day jobs. So they, get hold of those projects, which maybe have been a bit of a side of a desk thing. We've got some fairly interesting times coming up with Brexit and IR35. So there's plenty of stuff to keep us busy. But I suppose it's about prioritization, isn't it? And from what we're seeing, the reason why candidates are coming to us at the moment is down to redundancy or future job security, which they're nervous about, and also how they've been treated during COVID. It is absolutely our fundamental obligation that we should be treating people well.
And Lisa, to your point, I think we have to plate spin. So I don't think there's one answer to finding talent. I don't think it's as simple as post and pray or go out there and find the next best thing. I think a best-in-class TA team are going to go out there and have those bases covered and plate spin accordingly, because I do have a big passion for conscious and unconscious bias. So I totally agree with you, Lisa. We do have to get that check and balance there. And there's some hidden gems out there. And you just think, wow, maybe they're great at their job, but they're not so great at marketing themselves. And that's including TA and HR leaders. But I think it's placement. Yeah.
Lindsay, I want to actually dive into that point because it's super important. Like, how the HR leader. No, but how do we brand ourselves? Chad's actually volunteered the fact that he hasn't actually been a candidate for this period of time. So all of this is like, you've got to experientially relearn this. So I want to dive back into this in a bit. However, I just want to finish off with this point about applicant flow and the volume of it. I think Lisa is right. A lot of the jobs out there, I wonder whether they're just automatically posted as a result of being created in the ATS. Like, it may not be a conscious decision to push it out there. A lot of them simply have a default. I publish this job internally and it creates a multi-post experience. It goes out to these things that have already bought these credits. So the job is posted, but perhaps without the intent to draw candidates. It's just a hygiene, sort of an efficiency that we had pre-COVID that we haven't gone back to re-examine and recheck. And then you get this overwhelming response and all this candidate backwash. Anyway, I'm making excuses for bad candidate experience. So let's not do any more of that. Let's talk about how to brand yourself as a TA leader. Lindsay, you volunteered that as a point.
Oh, I did not.
Yeah.
I distinctly heard you. And by the way, folks, if you have any questions for these marvelous guests, please ask them in the Ask Question function at the bottom of your screen. But Lindsay, let's go to you. How do you brand yourself as a HR or TA leader that finds themselves on the job market at this point in time? What do companies want to see? Particularly interested in your view, kind of inside with Korn Ferry, obviously a headhunting firm, obviously a firm that kind of looks at senior management, C-level folks. What are the things this person needs to be signaling to say, you know what, it's a high quality candidate?
So certainly something that I've looked at over a couple of decades now are the people who stand out, do go above and beyond. They aren't, to Chad's point, just sending a CV and hoping for the best. They are working through their networks. They're talking to people. They just don't stop. And then they go out there and what I call sharpen their saw. So they kind of think to themselves, maybe, and I've caught myself doing it as well and gone, it's been a while since I've read some white papers, and then you look at a white paper and you go, oh my gosh, it's 124 pages, and guess what, that gets shelved. So I think it's being able to balance marketing yourself, networking. I hate to say the obvious, but having a really strong CV is still going to be important. I think we should always remember that. And some of those basics I still see to this day, typos, and and you can have it's just getting the basics right, networking, and show us and show the people that you're interested in working for that you're at the top of your game. You're always willing to learn and you're always willing to improve. So I think having that continuous improvement mindset about wherever you're working and where you aspirationally you wish to work, that's some of the things amongst plethora of other ideas that has talent stand out to me for sure.
How about you, Chad? I mean, what have you learned in this period of time? I know you've had a variable experience in terms of, your job search so far, but have you spotted any patterns where you can say, actually, this seems to be a little bit more effective than that?
I think to Lindsay's point is just being active with your network. I never used to have the time, or didn't carve out the time to maybe leverage it as much when I was in work. Like I didn't spend as much time on LinkedIn commenting or sharing or helping people. And I think, what I'll learn is when I do get my next gig, I will actually invest time in doing that because it's been really helpful. I've learnt loads. I've connected with some amazing people that I wouldn't have ordinarily have done that. And that will hold me in good stead in the future. So I think you have to craft time in your very busy diaries to spend on your network, speaking to people, listen to webinars, just upskilling yourself and ensure that your teams are also doing that. I think that's probably one thing that I've learned that I'll continue doing post-COVID for sure.
And Chad and I were talking about this as well, is that don't be afraid to unite with other similar, like your peers, other TA leaders. There's generally this feeling of, well, I can't tell Chad about that job because I want to go for it and Adam wants to go for this. But actually, when you come together and you realise, do you know what? If you don't get that job, you're just not the right person, but you can help another TA leader. And this isn't, woo-woo, women together. It's anyone, any sex, any gender. Come together if you're a TA professional and share what you know, if you're comfortable with doing that. And actually, it's quite empowering. I found myself in that situation a few years ago, and I thought, why am I not telling that person about that opportunity? What am I so afraid of? And it was a game changer. And some of those people will still tweet me today, send private messages, how are you doing? And, I think we could do a lot more to help each other.
Building social capital, sorry, Adam, go ahead.
Yeah, it's building social capital. Good way of putting it. It's something that I was really surprised about in that meetup I joined last night when they were all absolutely just sharing. I had an interview for that one. I quite like it. I don't know if anybody else is interested. I had an interview for that one. It's not for me, but here's why it's not for me. It might be for one of you. And they were genuinely sharing leads, and I thought that was incredible. I want to just ask Chad, specifically, because you've been active in the market for the last couple of months, you said, what are the specific problems that you've found? So one you said was a lack of feedback. That is clearly very frustrating. Any others that have been like, that is bad, that's bad, that's bad? What are the specific things that have been frustrating or disappointing?
I think I have attended interviews as well. I say attended, obviously, virtually. And one interview I had, it was through a recruitment consultancy. The feedback I got from the agent was that I wasn't the right fit. Now I questioned it. Well, what does that actually mean? And surely that's a really soft and easy excuse to give a candidate that doesn't have any insight or data behind it. And she couldn't give me anything more than that.
Is that worse than no feedback? It's about the same. It's on par with no feedback, isn't
Probably.
It's not me, it's you. It's not you.
At least you know you're not getting it. At least you know you're not getting it.
No, but is there a difference there between the agency managed jobs though and the ones that are going direct? Because I've always felt that if you're a third party agent, you're going to just get rid of this guy. That's the mentality. No disrespect to job candidates. I was an agent. I thought, right, I want to get rid of this guy as quickly as possible because I'm going to move on to a live candidate. That's the job. However, if you're an internal recruiter, you have a different set of responsibilities because you have to be super protective of your employer brand, much more so than you would be as a third-party recruiter. So I wonder whether your experience, are you measuring this in some way? Like, okay, this is internal, this is agency. Is that part of the analysis? Because it might well be that's a signal as to which approach is better or worse, depending on your tolerance for bad experience.
To be fair, that was the only interview I had through a recruitment agent. So to your point, and the other couple of interviews, I've had quite extensive feedback, which is good, and I'm still in the mix for a few others. But I think to Adam's point, it's just like I've had less success applying cold, more success of where I've leveraged an opportunity or I've used my network. If I did see a role advertised, I know somebody who works there, or I know somebody who knows somebody who works there, that I've gone in that way rather than just throwing my CV in cold, and that's why I've had most traction.
Chad, have you ever had the one where you've applied for something on LinkedIn and then it says a recruiter has viewed your profile and it's for that job, and then you hear nothing? Like nothing. And then you suddenly find like 3 or 4 people who you could probably map that are the hiring manager and the hiring manager. And you think, really? You still can't come back to me? Have you ever had that happen?
Yeah, I've seen that.
I haven't actually, no.
I had that before. Oh no! I feel so sad.
Hey everyone, we're coming to the kind of towards the end of the show, so I want to sneak in a quick question, which I think is actually quite an interesting one, which is, you've got a job, you've applied for it. There is a good chance that the person who's reviewing it and potentially getting on a phone or a video interview with you is going to be junior to you, but still in the same industry. They're a recruiter, TA. You've got like 10 years on them. You're much more experienced. You could be their boss. How best to handle that situation? I mean, this person is screening you, I mean, isn't that like, I find that like a super strange situation. I'm not even sure how I would mentally process that, but I wonder whether you have any views or inputs on this. You're a head of TA, you've gone for a job, and it's like, oh, recruitment manager is just reviewing it. Yep.
Yeah. So that's just happened to me for my role at Nestle. So, at the end of the day, the recruiter that looks after HR recruitment, they have a job to do, and there's no difference. People the world over constantly interview people that are more, senior to them, in the sense of, it depends on what sector they're recruiting into. And in terms of, it's a bit strange. I mean, the reality is when you're a head of TA and you're going for a new role, it's complete cobbler's shoes. I mean, you are in your world, so it's a strange phenomenon. But actually, the way you approach it is how you would expect to approach it, in the sense of just completely professional. You're just giving the information over. You obviously, from my perspective, I knew that a rapport had to be built, because obviously this person was looking at me from a technical and culture and style, etc. But similarly, as a teammate. So it does give it an extra layer of frisson, which is a little bit nerve-wracking. But similarly, if you're the right person for the job, you're fine. So I think just you would expect the recruiter to be professional, and you remain professional.
I've found it quite enlightening, actually, when that's happened to me. I've kind of watched them as much as they've watched me, because I think it speaks volumes about the brand, the culture, the company, the recruiter. I've seen recruiters historically have power trips and love every moment of it. I've had, fantastic rapport with recruiters. And so I think, sometimes you kind of go, oh, really? But just to Lisa's point, you just treat it like you would anyone else, and actually just always remember it's a two-way street, and watch how they're treating you, how they're interacting with you. And if they've been smart enough to pick up the phone to any of us, then they must be doing a good job. So
the person that I was interviewed by, and we finished the conversation with, God, I could have talked for another hour. We built such a great rapport. She now reports to me, and we have a great relationship, albeit it's 6 weeks in. so yeah.
I think you have to
chat on this call.
I think I really enjoy it, actually. And I think you have to have that mutual respect. I think if you go in really arrogant and sort of acting as if you are better or more experienced, then of course that's not going to have the conversation. So you demonstrate empathy. You say you've been in your shoes, it must be tough, and you can build that rapport, to Lisa's point. And if they're worth their salt, they can identify your ability and your ability to sort of adopt into their culture by having the conversation. And I think if you go in with no ego, open-minded, and to Lindsay's point, really understanding where they're coming from, I think it'd be really good conversation. And I've been lucky enough to have some really interesting conversations, even though I haven't been successful in a couple of them. They've been really professional, and I've linked in with them, and I'll stay in contact with them because they've been good at their job.
And the way that I've kind of dealt with it with some recruiters is to say, I'm just a recruiter. it doesn't matter what my job title is, I still feel like I am a recruiter. So, and that's kind of helped to, kind of break down some walls and barriers at the beginning, that I still see myself, no matter what the salary is and what the fancy job title is, I'm a recruiter.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question about technology? Because technology should make candidate Sorry, I just asked Lisa what her favourite Nestle product is. She's saying it's the purple quality street. It's got to be the Haagen-Dazs or the Movenpick, surely, the ice cream. Or even Nesquik, the chocolate milk. Yeah. So listen, my question is, do you believe that technology is making candidate experience worse or better? So the reason I'm asking the question is because Chad's talking about a lack of feedback, and I'm thinking to myself, I feel like we're getting towards the point where people can be getting rejected with better feedback via technology than they can from humans pouring through 300 CVs. It's humans who really do actually a lot of the time make candidate experience bad because they forget to phone someone back and do things like that. The technology shouldn't really cause the problems. The technology should make it better. But are we there yet?
The reality is that we are all given Ferraris to drive in terms of technology, and we should be in mini metros the way we use technology. So the technology is there for us to give an exceptional candidate experience, which even more so now is becoming more personalized, makes people feel like they have been recognized as an individual. The reality being is our adoption of using this technology effectively in that way is not quite there.
I agree 100%, Lisa. I think there's been a couple of applications that I've sent through, and at the end of your application, the statement is, due to the high number of volume of applications we have due to COVID, if you don't hear back with us within 14 days, you can assume you're unsuccessful. That is an absolute no-no. That's unacceptable. If you're using an ATS, you just select all the people you want to reject, tailor the email, bang. Takes like 30 seconds. It's just stupid. I can't believe companies are still doing that.
Okay, so kind of coming to the end of time here, folks. I'm going to try and dive into some of the questions here because we do have some questions coming through. So we don't have time for everyone, but I want to just deal with one from Nadia here. She's talking, I think, with regards to this topic, feedback. And I want to paraphrase this because it's quite a long question. I hope you don't mind, Nadia. But she's essentially saying, hey, listen, at the end of the day, it might just be not a case about your experience or matching, your competence per se to the job, but it is that nebulous cultural fit issue. There's 10 candidates. We're going to make it based on that rapport we were talking about, that sort of intangible feeling. That's what we want to communicate. That's the reason for the decision. But that might be quite difficult to communicate because it is ultimately a subjective call. It's like, I got on with you better. I mean, what else? You can't say this. So
I had an experience this week where I had a candidate that wasn't satisfied with the feedback they'd been given by the recruiter. It was escalated. I gave him a ring, and basically, actually it was to do with style and behaviour in the way that he was answering the competency-based questions. So technically competent. How he would adopt his style and behaviour in our business for the way that we are, it wasn't appropriate. And it was quite aggressive on the phone and actually proved all the reasons why he hadn't managed to get through to the next round of the interviews. And so I know somebody on the chat said culture fit is bullshit. There is a style and behaviour that businesses you approach in certain types of businesses. So, how you operate in Goldman Sachs is probably very different to how you operate in HSBC. So, just because it's a sector doesn't mean that they're the same type of culture and behavior fit. So,
yeah. Great. I love the style and behavior category because maybe that should be on the scorecard. If that's okay, by the way, if anybody's in compliance, let me know if this is okay to do. But to have I literally don't know. I mean, I personally think cultural fit does make a difference, obviously. So whoever said cultural fit is bullshit, it's Lee Candiotti. Of course it is. Lee, I'd love to hear your comments. would you be happy for us to, if it's a redefinition with terminology, we said style, it's style and behavior, would you be happy with that? Yes, no. And again, what you've described there, Lisa, does actually not justify, but explain a little bit about why this is tricky, because it means that suddenly people's time is being absorbed and there's no better output. Like the person is still annoyed, but they've had to bring in the head of TA to come in and spend half an hour on the phone with this guy. He's still annoyed.
I killed him with kindness, hung. He's happy as Larry now.
You managed to turn him. I get it. But we can understand why this is very difficult. Okay, I think that's about it, folks. Unless anybody else has got anything more to say, we are running over time and we've actually lost Chad anyway. Lee, thank you for being very clear in your commentary there, as always. Listen, everybody, I hope you've enjoyed the show. We'll be back next week. I think this is something we need to talk about again. I feel like we've only scratched the surface really as to what job search is like for people at the senior level. And I think job search at every level in TA or HR, L&D, all of these things are going to matter very much for us now, because I think 7 months ago, it probably wasn't a priority concern for us to learn how to do this, but now it is. We have to become good job seekers, or at least good at identifying and converting opportunities, something which we may have forgotten about. So thank you everyone for joining us on the show. Thank you to our guests, Chad Horn, Lindsay Shanklin, Lisa Scales, co-host Adam Gordon. Thank you everyone who's been watching on the chat stream and Crowdcaster SA and on the different casts as well. We'll be back next week. I have no idea what we'll be talking about, but it will be great. So follow the channel and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
And we managed to do it all on 4G. Amazing. By the way, folks, if everyone's still watching, apologies if it was a bit of a choppy line. I lost my router yesterday, and essentially I'm doing it all via this mobile hotspot. Anyway, we'll be back next week. Make sure you follow the channel, subscribe to the newsletter. Have a very good weekend, folks.